My face is so scary, said alien vampire Queen No. You are the most beautiful in the galaxy, I said. It was simple, clean, and built for one purpose, peaceful contact. Inside the ship stood Elias Ward, Earth's chosen envoy. He was not a soldier, he was not a hero from stories. He was simply human. Elias stood near the wide viewing window, watching the distant planet grow larger. The world below was covered in deep shadows and soft glowing lights, like stars resting on the ground. This was Nocteria, home of the Nightborn. Across the galaxy, the Nightborn were feared. Other species whispered stories about them, stories of sharp features, glowing eyes, and endless darkness. Many said the Nightborn ruler was terrifying beyond words. They called her the alien vampire queen. Elias had read every report. He had seen every image. He knew the stories were exaggerated by fear. Still, he felt the quiet weight of history pressing on his chest. "This is it," he said softly to himself. The ship's artificial voice spoke calmly. "Approaching diplomatic landing zone, atmospheric entry stable." Elias straightened his jacket. It was plain and dark blue with no medals. Humanity had decided long ago that first impressions should be honest, not loud. The ship descended. The palace of Nocteria was carved from black crystal stone that reflected light like still water. Tall towers reached upward, thin and sharp, yet elegant. Soft, glowing lines ran along the walls, lighting the path without harsh brightness. As Elias stepped out of the ship, the air felt cool and clean. It smelled faintly of stone and night flowers. Waiting for him were the Queen's guards. They stood tall and silent, their eyes glowing faint silver. Their forms were slender but powerful. Their faces were different from any humans, longer, sharper, and framed by pale markings. Elias did not step back. He placed one hand over his chest and bowed slightly, the human gesture of respect. The guards looked at one another. No one had bowed to them before. Without a word, they turned and led him inside. The throne chamber was vast and quiet. Dark light filled the space, not bright but not empty either. It felt like standing under a night sky filled with stars. The floor reflected the ceiling, making the room seem endless. At the far end sat the Queen. She was taller than the guards, seated on a throne shaped like folded wings. Her skin was pale, almost glowing softly against the darkness. Her eyes were deep red, calm but sharp. Long white hair flowed down her back like moonlight. She did not move, she did not smile. She watched. Elias walked forward slowly, his footsteps echoing. Every step felt heavy, not with fear, but with importance. He stopped several steps away and bowed again. "I am Elias Ward," he said clearly. "Envoy of humanity, I thank you for allowing me to stand before you." Silence followed. The Queen's gaze remained fixed on him, then she spoke. Her voice was smooth, deep, and carried easily across the hall. "You are not afraid." It was not a question. Elias lifted his head. "I feel respect," he replied, "not fear." A small change passed across the Queen's expression. It was brief, almost invisible, but it was there. "You look at me directly," she said. "Others lower their eyes." Elias nodded slightly. "In my culture, looking at someone means listening." The Queen leaned forward just a little. "How strange," she said quietly. She rose from her throne. The guards tensed, but she lifted one hand and they relaxed. As she stepped down, Elias could see her more clearly. Her presence was powerful but not threatening. There was something old in her eyes, wisdom mixed with loneliness. She stopped a short distance from him. "Tell me, human," she said. "When you saw my image before coming here, what did you feel?" Elias thought carefully. He knew this moment mattered. "I felt curiosity," he said. "And sadness?" The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "Sadness? Yes," Elias answered honestly, "because everyone described you as something to fear, but no one spoke about who you are." The room grew very quiet. The Queen turned away, walking slowly toward the tall windows overlooking her city. "For centuries," she said, "others have looked upon my people and seen only darkness. They named us monsters, they avoided us, they feared us." She paused. "And they feared me most of all." Elias listened without interrupting. She turned back to him. "My face is so scary," the Queen said softly. "Even I have come to believe it." The words were not spoken with anger. They were spoken with tired acceptance. Elias felt something tighten in his chest. He took a slow breath. With calm honesty, he said, "No, Your Majesty, you are the most beautiful in the galaxy." The guard stiffened instantly. The air seemed to freeze. The Queen's eyes widened. "What did you say?" she asked. Elias did not look away. His voice remained steady. "I said you are beautiful." The Queen stared at him as if she had misheard. No one, she said slowly, has ever said that to me. Elias nodded. Then it was time someone did. Silence filled the throne chamber again, but it was different now. It felt alive, charged with something new. The queen studied him carefully. You speak without fear, she said, without desire, without deception. I speak as a human, Elias replied. That is all. She took a step closer. Explain, she said. Elias smiled faintly. Humans learned long ago that fear often hides truth. We learn to look again and again until we see clearly. The queen searched his face, looking for mockery. She found none. Instead, she saw sincerity. She turned away once more, gazing down at her city. When I was young, she said, I believed strength came from being feared. I believed beauty belonged only to others. She placed a hand against the glass. But you stand here and you see something different. Elias nodded. Yes, what do you see? She asked quietly. He answered without hesitation. I see a ruler who carries her people's pain alone. I see someone who stayed strong when the galaxy turned away. I see courage. The queen closed her eyes. For the first time in centuries, she felt something unfamiliar, seen. She opened her eyes and faced him again. Human Elias Ward, she said, you have spoken words that could not be taken back. I understand, he replied, and yet, she continued, you still stand. Yes, he said simply. A small smile touched her lips, soft, unsure, but real. Then perhaps, she said, humanity is not what the galaxy believes. She lifted her hand. Stay, she commanded gently. Speak with me, teach me how humans see the universe. Elias bowed deeply. It would be my honor. As the guard stepped back and the palace lights dimmed, something changed within the great hall of Nocteria. For the first time, fear did not rule the space. Understanding had entered. And far beyond the palace walls, the galaxy remained unaware that everything was about to change. The night on Nocteria was unlike any night Elias had ever known. Outside the palace, the city shimmered like millions of tiny stars, but it was quiet. No one moved in the streets. It was as if the city itself was waiting for something to happen. Elias walked beside the queen through the palace halls. The corridors were wide and smooth, made of dark stone that reflected faint lights. Shadows stretched along the walls, but they felt calm here, not dangerous. You do not fear the shadows, the queen said quietly. Her voice echoed softly in the hall. Elias shook his head. Shadows are only the absence of light. They cannot hurt me. The queen's lips curved slightly. It was almost a smile, but not quite. She studied him as they walked. Most visitors do not speak like that, she said. They hide, they tremble, or they lie. They say one thing but mean another. Why are you different? I do not know, Elias admitted. I suppose it is because I see more than appearances. I listen before I judge. She stopped walking and looked down a long hall. Listening, that is rare. Even my own people do not always listen. They judge by what they see on the surface. Elias nodded. I think that happens across the galaxy. People fear what is different, what they cannot understand. They tell stories that make monsters, not people. The queen let the words sink in. Her red eyes softened, though a quiet shadow of doubt lingered there. You speak wisely, human, and yet why would you risk coming here knowing what my people believe of humans? Because the galaxy must know that not all humans are afraid, he said simply, and not all aliens are monsters. Fear is only one story, understanding is another. The queen turned fully to him, her eyes searching. Understanding, do humans truly value it so much? Elias smiled faintly. Yes, we value truth and honesty, and we value seeing the good in others even if it is hidden. For a moment, the two of them walked in silence. Their footsteps echoed through the empty halls. Finally, the queen spoke again. Then teach me, human. Show me how you see beauty. They entered a chamber filled with soft lights that changed color slowly. The room smelled faintly of night flowers, and the air was cool and clean. It felt safe, yet powerful. The walls were lined with tall windows, showing the city below, glowing softly in the darkness. Elias turned to her. Beauty is not only in faces or shapes, he said. It is in courage, in kindness, in the way someone carries themselves. Even your people, your eyes, your posture, your voice, all tell stories that is beautiful. The queen raised an eyebrow. Even me? Yes, Elias said without hesitation. Even you are not just a ruler or a warrior. You carry the history of your people, their fears and hopes. You bear it all alone, and that is strength, and strength is beautiful. She looked down at her hands. They were long and pale, tipped with fine, curved nails. She studied them as if seeing them for the first time. All my life I have been told I am frightening, My face, my body, everything about me is frightening. And now you say I am beautiful, Elias nodded. Yes, because beauty is not just what the eye sees, it is what the heart and mind understand. Your face may scare others, but it does not scare me. I see who you are inside. The queen closed her eyes, a long pause stretching between them. Her mind, trained for centuries in strategy and diplomacy, struggled with the simple truth of his words. No one has ever said this to me, she admitted softly. Then it is time someone did, Elias said. The queen's red eyes opened again, meeting his. For a moment, the weight of loneliness she had carried for centuries lifted slightly. She felt something new, a small, delicate warmth that she had almost forgotten existed. Over the next hours, Elias spoke of human ways. He told stories of Earth, of people who overcame fear, who looked at strangers with curiosity instead of hostility. He explained that humans had made mistakes, fought wars, and misunderstood one another, but they always tried to learn. The queen listened quietly, her head tilted, absorbing every word. She asked questions, curious but careful. Her voice was softer now, without the sharp edge of command. Do humans always speak the truth? She asked. Not always, Elias admitted, but they value honesty, and sometimes honesty is more powerful than any weapon. The queen looked at him thoughtfully. Then why do you trust me? Because I see more than fear, he said. I see you. Again she paused. She looked down, then glanced at him. Seeing me truly is not easy. Others see what they want or what they expect. How can you see past that? By listening. By paying attention, by caring, Elias said simply. The queen studied him in silence. Then, almost as if testing him, she asked, Do you think humans are stronger than my people? Elias shook his head. Strength is not only physical. Your people have survived when others tried to destroy them. That is strength. Humans survive in different ways. We survive by learning, by adapting, by building alliances. Strength takes many forms. She considered this, her gaze distant. Perhaps we have underestimated humans. Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated you. Perhaps, Elias agreed, and perhaps this is the start of change. The queen led him to a balcony overlooking the city. The lights below shimmered like liquid stars. Night flowers glowed faintly in small gardens. Creatures flew in patterns across the sky, moving like dancers. The view was breathtaking. Your city is beautiful, Elias said. The queen laughed softly, a sound like wind through crystal. You find beauty in what others fear. That is strange. Strange is not always bad, Elias replied. Sometimes it is necessary. She looked at him for a long moment. You do not look at me with fear, nor with desire, nor with any hidden thought. You see me honestly. That is rare. Then it is my gift, he said simply. For the first time, the queen smiled fully. It was not forced. It was small, but it reached her eyes. She had not smiled in centuries, not truly. And yet now she did. You humans, she said softly, shaking her head. You see things differently. Perhaps differently is what we need, Elias nodded. Different can be good, different can change the galaxy. The queen turned to face him. Do you think my people can change? Yes, Elias said firmly, if they are given the chance to be seen, to be understood, to be trusted. She studied him closely. And humans, do you trust easily? Not easily, he admitted, but when I see something worth trusting, I do, and I see that in you. The queen's eyes glowed faintly in the night. She let out a small, soft laugh. I have ruled for centuries. I have been feared, respected, and avoided, yet you make me feel hope. Elias smiled. Hope is the beginning of understanding, and understanding can change everything. Later, they walked through the palace gardens. Strange flowers glowed softly in the dark. Water moved silently in black pools, reflecting the faint light of floating orbs. Nocturian guards walked at a distance, silent and respectful, giving them privacy. The queen paused beside a glowing flower. This flower, it blooms at night. It has no sunlight, yet it thrives. Humans would call it unusual, yet I think it is beautiful. Yes, Elias said. Sometimes what thrives in darkness is stronger than what thrives in light. Sometimes we see true beauty where others fear to look. She smiled again. You speak like a poet. I speak like a human, he said. We have survived by learning to see the world honestly. The queen looked at him, studying his eyes. And in your eyes I see honesty. Perhaps it is time my people and I are seen honestly too. Elias nodded. Then it will begin. That night, for the first time in centuries, the alien vampire queen slept without fear. She dreamed of light and stars, of humans who saw her as more than her appearance, of a galaxy where trust was stronger than fear. Elias stayed awake, watching over the city from the balcony. He felt the weight of the first contact, the first step toward change. A small spark, but enough to ignite a future where understanding could thrive. Above them, stars shone in silence. Below, the city of Nocteria glowed in patterns like constellations. Two very different beings, from two very different worlds, had begun a journey together. And for the first time, the Nightborn Queen wondered if the galaxy might not be as cold as she had always believed. The sun, or what passed for a sun on Nocteria, was a faint, silver glow in the sky. Its light never reached the entire world, leaving much of the land in permanent twilight. Elias walked beside the Queen once more, though today was different. Today, they would explore the history of her people. The palace halls were still dark, but they moved with a sense of purpose. The Queen led him to a hidden section of the palace, one that humans were rarely allowed to see. The doors were carved from black crystal, etched with the stories of centuries past. As the doors opened, Elias could see rows of glowing panels, each showing images moving like living pictures. "These," she said, her voice soft, "are the memories of my people, all our victories, all our losses, all our mistakes, and all our fears." Elias stepped closer, fascinated. The panels showed great battles, moments of joy, and centuries of solitude. He saw families celebrating births, warriors training, scholars studying. And in almost every image there was fear, the fear of outsiders, the fear of the galaxy, the fear of being misunderstood. "You carry a heavy history," Elias said quietly. The Queen nodded. "Yes, and until now no one has ever wished to understand it. They see only the stories that frighten them. They call my people monsters, though we have done nothing to harm them directly." Elias studied her face. The red in her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "That is what I meant before. You are not what the galaxy believes. And your people, they are strong, not because they are feared, but because they survived." The Queen let out a long, soft breath. "Survival has its cost. We have learned to hide our pain, to hide our faces, to hide our emotions, and yet, when you look at me, you see them all." Elias nodded. "Because seeing is the first step to understanding. You cannot change the galaxy without it." They moved deeper into the hall, where the panels shifted to a different story, the first contact with other civilizations. Elias could see ships approaching, many turning away, many attacking first out of fear. The Nightborn had survived attacks from the most powerful species in the galaxy, not by strength alone, but by strategy, cunning, and patience. "This is what your people are," Elias said. "Not monsters, but survivors. You have endured more than most species could imagine." The Queen's gaze softened. "Yes, and yet the galaxy remembers us only as monsters. My people are feared, hated, avoided, and I have always carried that burden alone." Elias stopped walking and turned to her. "But no longer, not if I can help it. You do not have to carry it alone anymore. Humanity can stand with you not as conquerors, not as judges, but as allies." She studied him, her head tilted. "Allies, why would humans offer this? Why would you risk so much for us?" "Because the galaxy is bigger than fear," he said. "And because seeing the truth, even when it is uncomfortable, is part of what makes humans human. We are not perfect. We have made mistakes, but we try to see clearly even when it is hard." The Queen remained silent for a long time. Then she asked softly, "And you see me clearly?" "Yes," Elias replied firmly. "I see you, I see your strength, your pain, your courage, and your beauty." Her red eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "Beauty, such a simple word, and yet it has never been used for me before." Elias nodded. "Sometimes the simplest words are the most powerful. You have survived centuries, ruled wisely, and carried the weight of your people. That is more beautiful than any surface appearance could ever show." For hours, they walked through the history of the Nightborn, and the Queen shared stories she had never told another being. She told Elias about wars where her people had been nearly wiped out. She told him about leaders who had betrayed her, friends who had left her, and enemies who had pretended to be allies. And yet, through it all, her people had endured. Elias listened quietly, never interrupting. He asked questions, not out of doubt, but out of curiosity. And when the Queen looked at him, she saw not judgment, not fear, but genuine interest. This is not how I expected humans to react," she admitted. "I thought you would fear us. I thought you would try to use us. I thought you would lie." "I did not," Elias said simply. "Because I believe that trust begins with honesty, and honesty begins with listening." The Queen let out a soft laugh, almost a whisper. "You speak in riddles, human, but somehow I understand." Elias smiled faintly. "Sometimes understanding is simpler than we imagine." As the day passed, the queen showed him a private archive filled with artifacts from her people's history. Weapons, tools, books, paintings, and recordings of ceremonies long forgotten. Elias walked among them slowly, touching nothing, absorbing every detail. "These objects tell our story," the queen said. "They are pieces of memory, of identity, and yet the galaxy sees none of it. They see only fear, only what frightens them." Elias looked at a delicate sculpture of a nightborn child. This is beauty," he said softly. "Not because it is perfect, but because it shows care, love, hope, even in darkness your people create." The queen looked at him in surprise. "You find hope in what others call darkness?" "Yes," Elias said, "because hope often hides where fear believes nothing can grow. And your people, they are full of hope, even if the galaxy cannot see it." She studied his face. "You humans, you are strange. You see things that others overlook. You see truth in what is feared." "Sometimes," Elias said, "sometimes it is the only way to survive." That evening they returned to the palace balcony. The city below glimmered in quiet patterns, and the floating lights above mirrored the stars. A soft wind moved across the balcony, carrying the scent of night flowers. "Do you think the galaxy will ever accept us?" the queen asked. "Will it ever see my people as more than monsters?" Elias looked out at the city, thinking carefully. "It will take time, but if we show them who you truly are, if we teach them to see beyond fear, yes. One day they will understand, and your people will be respected, not feared." The queen's eyes glimmered in the night. "It is hard to believe. We have waited so long for hope, for change, and now you offer it." Elias nodded. "I offer truth, and truth is stronger than fear." A silence fell between them, not uncomfortable, but full of thought. The queen's expression softened as she looked out at the glowing city. "You have a strange power, human," she said finally. "Not of weapons, not of armies, not of cunning, but of vision. You see what others refuse to see. You believe what others refuse to believe." "Perhaps," Elias said quietly, "that is the difference between fear and understanding. One hides from the world, one faces it honestly." The queen smiled faintly. "Then perhaps humans are not so different from my people. Perhaps we both strive to survive, to protect, to be seen." "Yes," Elias said, "and together, perhaps we can help the galaxy see clearly." In the days that followed, Elias and the queen worked closely together. They spoke of diplomacy, of history, of alliances. She taught him the rules of her world, the traditions of her people, and the ways they had survived centuries of mistrust. He shared the ways of humanity, how humans had learned to unite despite differences, how they had overcome fear through understanding, and how small acts of honesty could change the course of history. The queen began to see possibilities she had never imagined. She saw a future where her people would be respected, where fear would no longer rule, and where trust could be stronger than suspicion. Elias noticed the change too. The queen, who had always carried the weight of centuries alone, was beginning to laugh more often, to speak more openly, and to dream more freely. The weight of her solitude was lifting, and with it, hope began to shine in the hearts of her people. One night the queen brought Elias to a private chamber he had not seen before. The walls were lined with mirrors, each reflecting the light of soft lamps. She stood before one of the mirrors and studied her reflection. "My face," she said quietly, almost to herself. "It frightens others, and yet you still say it is beautiful." "Yes," Elias said softly, stepping beside her, "because beauty is not in the shape of your face. It is in the life you have lived, the courage you have shown, and the hope you carry. That is more beautiful than any appearance could ever be." The queen closed her eyes, a small tear sliding down her pale cheek. "I have lived so long believing that fear was my only strength, and now you show me another path." Elias placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You have always had strength, but now you also have hope, and hope can change everything." The queen opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. Perhaps the galaxy will finally see us as we are." "Yes," Elias said firmly, "and I will help you. Humanity will stand with you, not in fear, not in judgment, but in understanding." The night deepened, but for the first time in centuries, the alien vampire queen felt lighter. She had shared her history, her fears, and her dreams. And for the first time, she believed that someone, another being from another world, truly saw her. And that small spark of hope, Elias knew, could grow into something far greater than either of them had imagined. The news of Elias Ward's presence on Nocteria spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Other species, once content to label the Nightborn as monsters, now whispered with curiosity and suspicion. They had heard stories of a human who dared to speak without fear to the alien vampire queen herself. Within the walls of the Nocturian palace, the queen felt the tension build like an approaching storm. Though she ruled her people with absolute authority, she could feel that her choices were about to be challenged, not from within, but from the galaxy beyond. Elias walked beside her in the throne chamber, his calm presence a contrast to the unease that filled the air. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "they will test us. They will try to turn doubt and fear against you." The queen's crimson eyes glimmered with a cold fire. "I know," she replied. "They fear what they do not control. They have always feared humans, and they have always feared my people. Now they fear us together." Elias nodded. "Then we must show them the truth. Fear can be louder than reason, but reason wins if it is patient and strong." She paused, looking at him. "You speak like a strategist, human, not a diplomat, not a historian, but a strategist. Do you truly believe reason can overcome centuries of fear?" "I do," he said firmly. "Because fear is always strongest when it is unchecked, and reason grows stronger when it is shared." Within days, emissaries from several powerful species arrived at the edge of Nocturia's orbit. They came in sleek ships, armed yet cautious, their movements careful but deliberate. They demanded to speak with the queen. Some came to negotiate, others came to warn her not to ally too closely with humans. The queen received them all in the throne chamber, Elias at her side. Her presence was commanding, her posture perfect, her voice calm and steady, even when faced with leaders who glared at her with thinly veiled hostility. "You are the alien vampire queen," one of the emissaries said, his voice sharp. "It is said that you inspire terror across the galaxy, and yet you welcome this human without fear." "Yes," the queen said simply, "because this human sees what others refuse to see, and because I have learned that understanding is stronger than fear." The emissary's eyes narrowed. "Understanding does not change the facts. Your people are different. They are dangerous. Humans are unpredictable. Why would you risk your people's safety for such an alliance?" Elias stepped forward, his tone measured but firm. "Because fear is not a measure of strength. It is a measure of weakness. My people and the Nightborn have survived by understanding, not by ruling through terror. And together we can achieve far more than either of us could alone." A murmur ran through the chamber. Some of the emissaries looked at him with disbelief. Others looked uncertain, as if they were beginning to question their own assumptions. The queen studied Elias. "Do you understand," she said softly, "the weight of what you say? If we fail, the galaxy will remember us only as monsters. If we succeed, it may never be the same." "I understand," Elias said, "and that is why I do not fear." The meeting continued for hours. The emissaries argued, debated, and challenged every word spoken by Elias and the queen. They spoke of old wars, of broken treaties, of centuries of mistrust. They tried to turn doubt against the queen, hinting that her alliance with humanity was a threat. But the queen did not falter. With Elias' quiet support, she answered each accusation with calm reason. She spoke of her people's history, their achievements, and the truth behind the stories that had painted them as monsters. She told of the courage it had taken to survive when others sought to destroy them, and of the hope that still guided her people. Elias added his voice when needed, not to dominate the conversation, but to reinforce her words. He spoke of humanity's history of learning from mistakes, of overcoming fear through understanding, and of the strength that comes from trust. By the end of the meeting, some emissaries were still skeptical, but others had begun to see the truth. Fear had not disappeared, but it had been challenged. And for the first time, the galaxy realized that perhaps the Nightborn were not monsters, and that humans could be allies in ways they had never imagined. After the meeting, the queen walked with Elias through the palace gardens. The night was quiet, the soft glow of nocturnal flowers lighting their path. "Do you think they will ever truly accept us?" she asked. Elias looked at the city below, its lights shimmering like constellations. "Acceptance takes time, but understanding can happen quickly if we are patient and consistent." The queen nodded. "I have spent centuries building walls around my people. Fear has always been the strongest shield, and now we are trying to remove those walls." "Not remove," Elias said. "Transform. Fear is not always bad. It teaches caution, but it cannot rule decisions if progress is to be made." The queen stopped beside a small pool of water, its surface reflecting the soft lights of the garden. You humans, you are strange. You see what others overlook and you speak truths that are simple yet powerful. How do you do it? Elias smiled faintly. We survive by learning to see clearly even when it is uncomfortable, and we try to act honestly even when it is difficult. She studied his face, her eyes thoughtful. And yet, you risk much by speaking honestly. Many of your species would never dare to do so. Yes, Elias admitted, but honesty builds trust, and trust can change the galaxy faster than any weapon. The Queen's lips curved into a small smile. Perhaps I have underestimated humans. Elias shook his head. No, you have only seen what you expected. Now you are seeing what is possible. The next day, the Queen called a council of her closest advisors. She wanted them to hear Elias' perspective directly. Many were wary. Some had served her for decades, and all had learned to fear outsiders. Elias addressed the council calmly. I am not here to lead your people, he said. I am here to offer perspective, to show that understanding is possible and that fear is not the only way to navigate the galaxy. Your people are strong, wise, and capable. You do not need to prove it through terror. Some advisors were skeptical, whispering among themselves. Others listened silently, intrigued by his words. The Queen observed them closely. You see, she said to the council, this human speaks not to dominate but to illuminate. Our strength lies not only in what we are feared for, but in what we are respected for. A long silence followed. Then one of the advisors spoke. Perhaps we have relied too much on fear. Perhaps the galaxy would see our people differently if we showed them honesty and courage instead of intimidation. Elias nodded. Exactly. Change begins with small actions, and it grows as others witness it. The Queen smiled faintly. Then we will begin together. In the following weeks, Elias and the Queen worked tirelessly. They reached out to emissaries who had been skeptical, offering dialogue instead of confrontation. They held meetings, shared histories, and demonstrated the wisdom and strength of the Nightborn in ways that fear alone could never convey. The galaxy began to notice. Reports spread of humans and Nightborn standing side by side, not as rulers and subjects, not as conquerors and conquered, but as partners. Fearful whispers slowly transformed into cautious curiosity. Even among those who remained distrustful, seeds of doubt began to grow. The stories of the Nightborn as monsters were no longer the only narrative. A new story emerged, one of survival, courage, and the possibility of trust. One evening, the Queen and Elias stood on the highest balcony of the palace, overlooking the city. The stars above mirrored the lights below. A quiet wind moved across the balcony, carrying the faint scent of night flowers. You have done something remarkable, human, the Queen said softly. You have challenged fear itself, and the galaxy, it listens. Elias looked out at the city, his heart steady. Not alone, he said. You led the way, I only helped others see what you have always been. The Queen's eyes glimmered in the night. Perhaps the galaxy can change, perhaps we can change it together. Yes, Elias said firmly. Together, for the first time in centuries, the Queen felt the weight of isolation lift. She was no longer alone, and with trust and understanding on her side, she realized that fear was no longer the only force guiding the future of her people. Above them, the stars shone in silent witness. Below, the city of Nocteria glowed softly, a symbol of courage, change, and hope. And in that quiet moment, both human and Nightborn knew that the galaxy would never be the same again. The city of Nocteria was alive with soft lights and gentle movement. The glow of the floating lamps reflected off the black crystal towers, painting the streets in patterns of gold and silver. The alien vampire queen stood at the balcony of her palace, her eyes scanning the horizon. For centuries, she had ruled in solitude, guided by fear and respect. Now, for the first time, she felt something new, hope. Beside her, Elias Ward stood silently. Humanity's envoy had become more than a visitor. He was a companion, a guide, and a witness to the truth of her people. Together, they had begun a transformation that even the galaxy itself could not ignore. The galaxy is watching, she said softly, her crimson eyes reflecting the city below. Some still fear us. Some doubt us, but perhaps it is changing. Elias nodded. It is. Change starts slowly, but it grows faster than we expect. Your people, they have shown the galaxy courage and wisdom, and humans, we have shown that understanding can bridge worlds. The Queen's gaze lingered on him, thoughtful. It is strange to see a human without fear, to hear words that are honest and kind. You have given me something I did not know I needed, hope. Elias smiled faintly. And you have shown me something, too. That courage is not only in action, but in honesty. Even when the galaxy believes you are a monster, you can choose to show the truth instead. For a long moment, they stood in silence, watching the city glow beneath the starlit sky. Then the Queen spoke again, her voice firm but soft. Tomorrow, we will hold a gathering, representatives from every corner of the galaxy. Some will come with curiosity, others with doubt, and some with old fear. But we will show them what truth looks like. What understanding can achieve. Elias nodded. And I will stand beside you, not to speak for you, but to help others see what you have always been. The next day, the palace halls were filled with movement and sound. Delegates from countless species arrived, their ships lining the landing bays like stars themselves had descended. Some emissaries whispered nervously to one another, others stared openly at the Nightborn guards with suspicion. Yet none dared approach without permission. Inside the throne chamber, the Queen sat upon her elevated seat, her presence commanding and elegant. Her red eyes swept across the gathered assembly, and she felt neither fear nor doubt. Elias stood beside her, calm and grounded, a reminder of the strength in honesty and trust. Delegates of the galaxy, she began, her voice steady and rich. You have come with many stories of my people, stories of fear, of darkness, of danger. And perhaps some of those stories are true. We have survived through careful strategy, patience, and vigilance. But I ask you to look deeper, look beyond the surface, see who we are, not who you were told we are. A murmur ran through the crowd. Elias stepped forward and spoke clearly, his voice carrying without effort. I have walked with the Queen, I have listened to her history. And I have seen her people not as monsters, but as survivors, as leaders, as beings capable of courage, wisdom, and hope. Humanity believes in truth, and we have chosen to trust what we have seen, not what we have been told. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned forward, curiosity replacing doubt. The words were simple, but the impact was powerful. They were not commands, not threats. They were honesty. The Queen rose from her seat, her presence radiant in the dim light. My people and I do not seek fear. We seek understanding. We do not wish to conquer, we wish to be known. And I ask all of you, will you see us as we are, not as your fears have made us? Silence filled the chamber. Then one by one, delegates began to speak. Some admitted past mistakes, acknowledging how fear had shaped their views. Others cautiously expressed curiosity, asking questions about the Nightborn's culture, history, and traditions. And slowly the atmosphere shifted. Elias watched carefully. He knew that fear could be louder than reason, but he also knew that truth, when spoken with honesty and patience, could overcome centuries of misunderstanding. He caught the Queen's eye, and she nodded slightly. Together, they were shaping a new story. Over the next hours, conversations grew more open. The Nightborn shared their history, their achievements, their losses. They showed artifacts of art, science, and culture that many species had never imagined. And humans, through Elias, reinforced the value of honesty, empathy, and shared learning. A young delegate from a distant star system finally spoke aloud, her voice trembling with surprise and admiration. I had thought your people were monsters. But I see now there is strength, wisdom, and beauty here, not in fear, but in what you have endured and how you live. The Queen's lips curved in a small, genuine smile. You see the truth, she said softly, and the truth is always stronger than fear. One by one, more voices joined hers. Curiosity replaced suspicion. Respect replaced dread. And for the first time in centuries, the alien vampire queen felt a quiet joy, not in power, not in fear, but in understanding. Later, Elias and the Queen walked alone through the palace gardens. The soft glow of nocturnal flowers lit their path. The city below shimmered like a mirror of stars, reflecting the quiet triumph of patience and truth. You have done something remarkable, human, the Queen said. Not just for me, but for my people. You have shown the galaxy a new way to see us. Elias smiled faintly. Not I alone. Your courage has done most of the work. I only helped others notice it. The Queen stopped and gazed at the horizon. For centuries, fear has ruled. I believed it was necessary, that it protected my people. But now, I see that understanding can be stronger than fear. That respect can be more powerful than intimidation. Yes, Elias said softly, and humanity has learned the same lesson. Fear can protect, but it can also divide. Understanding unites. The Queen turned to him. Do you think the galaxy will ever truly accept us? Elias studied her face, seeing the centuries of isolation, of expectation, of responsibility. Perhaps not all at once. But step by step, those who choose to see honestly will follow, and the rest will have to adjust to the truth. The queen smiled, her eyes glimmering in the soft light. Then it begins, the truth, and the most beautiful part is that we do not have to stand alone. Days turned into weeks. The alliance between humans and Nightborn strengthened. Word spread across the galaxy that fear could be challenged, that truth could overcome ancient suspicion. Planets once hostile to the Nightborn now invited dialogue. Ships bearing emissaries from distant stars landed openly, seeking understanding instead of conquest. The queen often reflected on how strange and wonderful it was. For centuries, she had believed her strength lay in fear. Yet now she understood that true strength lay in honesty, courage, and connection. Elias had helped her see it. Humanity had helped her see it. One evening, she brought Elias to a quiet terrace overlooking the city. The stars above mirrored the lights below. The wind was gentle, carrying the scent of night flowers. "Do you see it?" she asked softly. "The galaxy changing?" Elias nodded. "I do, and your people, they will lead the way, not by fear, but by courage, wisdom, and honesty." The queen looked out over the city, her heart full. "All this time I believed beauty was in the form and appearances in the way others feared me, but now I see beauty is in truth, in courage, in being truly seen." Elias placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "And you have been seen, Queen, not as a monster, not as a legend, but as you are, and the galaxy will remember it." For a long moment they stood together, watching as the city lights danced like stars. Below, emissaries and citizens moved freely, no longer bound by fear, only guided by curiosity and respect. Finally, the queen spoke, her voice steady and calm. "Elias, you have given me something I never expected: hope, trust, and a reminder that even in darkness, light can grow." Elias smiled. "And you have reminded me that strength is not only in power, but in truth, in honesty, and in courage that does not seek fear but understanding." The queen's eyes glimmered. "Then we have done more than change a city, more than change a people. We have begun to change the galaxy." "Yes," Elias said, "one truth at a time." Above them, the stars shone silently, witnessing the birth of a new era. Below, the city of Nocteria glowed, alive with hope, courage, and the quiet power of understanding. The alien vampire queen, once feared and alone, smiled fully for the first time in centuries. She was no longer defined by fear or isolation. She was defined by truth, courage, and beauty that went beyond appearance. And beside her, humanity had shown the galaxy that even the simplest honesty, the smallest understanding, could change everything. The galaxy would never be the same again. The end.